The morning was just like any other for Michael Strahan and the team at Good Morning America, but no one could have predicted that a simple interview with Niall Horan would spiral into one of the most dramatic moments in recent live TV history. The segment, initially set up to discuss Horan's new music and his upcoming tour, took an unexpected turn when an innocuous question seemed to rattle the usually composed singer. What followed was a dramatic, tense exchange that left Strahan visibly stunned and Horan walking off the set, leaving both the hosts and viewers in complete disbelief. The interview began with Strahan offering a warm greeting, a familiar, light-hearted start that quickly transitioned into questions about Horan's latest music projects. The early moments were typical of a celebrity appearance, a easy chatter about the creative process and the excitement of hitting the road again. Horan, always the polite professional, spoke about the personal nature of his latest album and how it represented a new chapter in his life. His answers were calm, relaxed, and seemed to flow naturally with Strahan's jovial yet structured style. However, as the conversation progressed, Strahan steered it toward a more personal direction, asking Horan about the challenges he faced after his time with One Direction. The question, though innocent on the surface, seemed to touch a nerve. Horan's demeanor shifted slightly, and for a moment, it seemed as though he was trying to gather his thoughts. Strahan, unaware of the growing tension, pushed further, asking how Horan had navigated the pressures of leaving a mega band and striking out on his own. This line of questioning, though common for artists in similar positions, felt like an uncomfortable intrusion into a part of Horan's life he perhaps wasn't ready to discuss on live television. Niall Horan's smile faltered as he answered the question, and his response was noticeably more guarded. "It's always a tough thing, you know, coming out of something that big," Horan said, his voice soft but steady. Strahan, sensing a potential opportunity to delve deeper, asked, "Do you think people ever see you as more than just the guy from One Direction?" The question hung in the air for a second too long, and Horan's face tightened. It was clear now that Strahan had unintentionally pushed a button, but the host continued, oblivious to the shift in mood. Horan's response was careful, though the frustration behind his words was palpable. "Look, I get it," he began. "I know what people think, and that's just something I have to deal with. But sometimes, it feels like I'm only ever seen as part of a past chapter, you know." There was an edge to his voice now, one that Strahan either didn't pick up on or chose to ignore. As the exchange continued, it became increasingly apparent that Horan was growing more uncomfortable with the questioning, his answers becoming shorter and more clipped. Strahan, either unaware or dismissive of the singer's discomfort, pressed on. "But isn't that the challenge for any artist who comes out of a huge group? Don't you feel like you're constantly trying to prove yourself?" he asked, pushing for a more direct answer. This was the moment where the tension finally hit its breaking point. Horan paused for a second, his eyes narrowing, and then responded with an unexpected sharpness, "I don't think I need to prove anything to anyone, Michael. I'm making music I'm proud of, and that's all that matters to me." The studio seemed to freeze for a moment. Strahan was taken aback by the bluntness of Horan's response, clearly not expecting the shift in tone. The audience, too, could feel the awkwardness in the air. The warmth that had defined the interview moments earlier was now completely gone. Horan's frustration was evident, but Strahan, perhaps caught in the moment or not fully understanding the gravity of the situation, continued to press for more, asking, "But don't you think people still want more from you than just the music? How do you handle that?" This was the moment that tipped the scales. Horan, visibly irritated, leaned back in his chair and shook his head. "Michael, I think you're missing the point here," he said, his voice rising just slightly. "People can think whatever they want, but I'm not here for their validation. I'm doing this for myself, not to satisfy some image of what they think I should be." His words were sharp, and the anger was now unmistakable in his tone. For a brief second, there was a palpable silence in the studio as both Strahan and the audience processed what had just transpired. Strahan attempted to recover, his tone shifting to one of feigned understanding. "I hear you, Niall, but what I'm asking is, How do you manage the pressure of those expectations? Because we all know what it's like to have people look at you in a certain way. However, the damage had already been done. Horan's patience had worn thin, and the frustration that had been building over the course of the interview could no longer be contained. "You don't get it," Horan snapped, his voice cracking slightly. "You're not living it, so don't pretend like you understand what it's like." "I don't want to talk about this anymore." Without giving Strahan a chance to respond, Horan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The studio audience gasped as the singer walked toward the exit. Strahan, caught off guard, watched helplessly as Horan made his way off the set. The entire exchange, which had started as a routine promotional interview, had spiraled into chaos in a matter of minutes. The cameras lingered on Strahan, who was left in stunned silence, before quickly cutting to a commercial break. Behind the scenes, producers scrambled to regain control, while Strahan, still trying to process what had just happened, sat frozen in his chair. The viewers, now watching with wide eyes, could hardly believe what they had just witnessed. This was not a scripted moment. This was raw, real, and utterly unexpected. As the commercial played, social media exploded. Clips from the interview, showing Horan walking off the set, began circulating almost instantly. Fans and commentators were quick to react, with some defending Horan's actions, arguing that Strahan had overstepped his bounds by pressing too hard on sensitive topics. Others criticized the singer for walking out, claiming that he should have handled the situation with more grace, especially given that Strahan's questions were, in their eyes, not meant to be disrespectful. The fallout was swift, with social media divided into two camps: those who stood by Horan for defending his personal boundaries and those who felt he had let his emotions get the best of him. In the days following the incident, the hashtag #NeilWalksOff trended globally, with both fans and critics offering their opinions. Some expressed support for Horan, praising him for standing up for himself, while others accused him of being unprofessional, especially given the fact that Strahan had been one of the most respected hosts in the industry. Meanwhile, on Good Morning America, Strahan's co-hosts tried to smooth over the situation when the show returned from the break. They apologized for the disruption and assured viewers that the incident was not planned. Strahan, who had remained largely silent during the commercial break, finally spoke, expressing regret for how the interview had unfolded. "I wasn't trying to upset Neil," he said. "I've always respected him and his career. This wasn't the way I intended for things to go." Behind closed doors, there were reportedly tense conversations between Horan's team and the producers of Good Morning America. Sources close to the singer revealed that Horan had been uncomfortable with the direction the interview was taking long before he walked off. It was clear that the subject of One Direction and his transition to a solo career had been a sensitive topic, one that Horan was unwilling to revisit in such a public setting. The incident sparked discussions about the pressure placed on celebrities during interviews. Many pointed out that artists, especially those who have been part of major bands like One Direction, often feel trapped by the public's perception of them. Horan, as a solo artist, was continuously asked to prove himself beyond his boy band days, a task that could feel exhausting and frustrating. The question of whether the media is too invasive, especially with regard to personal topics, became a central theme in the fallout. The interview also highlighted the fine line that interviewers must walk when engaging with celebrity guests. Strahan, who is usually known for his light-hearted and empathetic interviews, seemed to miss the mark in this instance. His attempts to delve deeper into Horan's personal journey inadvertently caused the rift, turning what should have been a promotional appearance into a full-blown media storm. Over the next few days, there was a noticeable shift in the tone of media coverage surrounding Horan. Interviews that had once focused solely on his music now began to discuss his emotional response to Strahan's questions. Many outlets praised Horan for his ability to stand his ground, noting that in an industry where stars often feel forced to play along with uncomfortable questions, his walk-off was an act of defiance that resonated with many. In response to the growing media firestorm, Horan issued a statement on social media, explaining his actions and apologizing to his fans for any confusion caused. "I respect Michael Strahan and the work he does," Horan wrote, "but sometimes, There are just moments when things go too far, and you have to take a step back. I want to be clear that I'm not angry with Michaela. I'm just not here to answer questions that don't respect my journey. His statement was met with a mixture of support and criticism, but it served to further clarify his position. As the dust settled, Strahan also addressed the situation publicly, explaining that his intent had never been to upset Horan. "I've always had great respect for Niall and his career," Strahan said in a follow-up interview. "I'm sorry if my questions came across as insensitive, but I never meant to cause him distress. I hope we can move past this, and I wish him all the best with his music." His apology was well received by many, though some felt that it came a little too late. In the aftermath, the debate about celebrity interviews continued to rage. Was Strahan too persistent in his questioning? Did Horan overreact? The exchange forced the media to confront the question of whether the line between professional curiosity and personal intrusion had become too blurred in the quest for compelling television. As for Horan, the incident didn't seem to slow his momentum. In fact, his new album continued to chart well, and fans rallied around him, applauding his decision to set boundaries. Horan's ability to take control of the narrative, even in the face of public scrutiny, became part of his image as a self-aware artist, one who refused to be pigeonholed or disrespected. The entire situation also served as a cautionary tale for other celebrities and media outlets. While many interviews can be light-hearted and fun, there is always the potential for things to take a turn when sensitive topics are raised. In an age where privacy is increasingly hard to maintain, it's more important than ever for both interviewers and interviewees to be mindful of the boundaries that exist between personal and professional. Ultimately, the interview will be remembered as one of the most unexpected and talked about moments in recent TV history. It was a reminder that even in the most controlled environments, things can go wrong, and that emotions are just as much a part of the conversation as the topics being discussed. For fans, the incident only deepened their admiration for Horan. His decision to walk off, rather than endure a line of questioning that made him uncomfortable, was seen by many as an act of integrity. In a world where stars are often expected to grin and bear the scrutiny of the media, Horan showed that it's possible to stand firm in your beliefs without sacrificing your values. Michael Strahan, for his part, took the lessons from the incident in stride. While his initial reaction was one of surprise, he quickly learned that celebrity interviews are often more complex than they appear on the surface. The whole experience, while challenging, provided an opportunity for growth and self-reflection, both for him and for the media landscape as a whole. The fallout from the interview also left fans with lingering questions about the nature of celebrity interviews and the role of the media in shaping public narratives. Was it fair for Strahan to press Horan on such a personal issue, or was it a legitimate part of the conversation? And should celebrities be expected to answer questions about their past, even when they've long since moved on? For the rest of the media world, the incident became a case study in how quickly things can spiral out of control during a live broadcast. It was also a reminder of the responsibility that interviewers bear in navigating sensitive topics. As much as they may want to dive deep into a celebrity's life, it's crucial to recognize when enough is enough. As time passed, the controversy gradually faded, but it remained a key topic of discussion for months. The Niall Horan-Michael Strahan clash became one of those unforgettable TV moments that people would refer to for years to come, a testament to the unpredictability of live interviews and the emotional complexity of celebrity culture. In the end, the incident between Niall Horan and Michael Strahan may have been uncomfortable for all involved, but it served as an important reminder that celebrities are people too. They have boundaries, emotions, and stories that deserve respect, even if they're on national television. As weeks passed, the Niall Horan-Michael Strahan interview continued to dominate the media cycle. Some outlets even referred to it as one of the most memorable interview moments of the year. The emotional clash between the two, which had started as an innocent exchange, became a touchstone for discussing the broader issues of celebrity privacy, boundaries, and the pressure to constantly address the past. It raised questions about how far journalists can go in pursuing personal stories, and how much responsibility they bear for the emotional toll their questions may exact. Horan, for his part, didn't allow the fallout to overshadow his professional trajectory. While some critics were still discussing the walk-off, he continued to perform and released new music. In fact, the controversy seemed to energize his fanbase. His social media following grew even larger, with many fans expressing admiration for his decision to take a stand against invasive questioning. For Horan, the walk-off wasn't a moment of weakness, it was a statement of control over his own narrative. Industry insiders also weighed in on the incident, with many acknowledging that the music business can be especially hard on artists trying to forge a new identity after being part of a globally successful group. Horan's experience as a member of One Direction made him a constant target for comparisons. The pressure to live up to the success of the band had been a topic of discussion for years, but the Good Morning America interview brought those frustrations into the open in a very public way. The interview also sparked a wider conversation about celebrity burnout. Horan's decision to walk off was seen by some as a reflection of the overwhelming demands placed on stars, who are often expected to put on a brave face and navigate endless rounds of interviews. The media industry, with its insatiable need for sensational moments, can sometimes be a pressure cooker for artists, leaving them with little room to simply be themselves. Horan's emotional response was a signal that even those in the public eye have limits. Public reaction to the incident continued to be mixed. Some viewers empathized with Strahan, understanding that his questions were meant to probe for deeper insights into Horan's career. But many more felt that Strahan had overstepped, given the personal nature of the questions. The moment became a case study in how public figures can often feel dehumanized by relentless media inquiries. As more people weighed in on social media, it was clear that the situation had ignited a passionate debate about the ethics of celebrity interviews. Strahan himself, despite the backlash, remained professional in his public comments. He clarified that he had no intention of upsetting Horan and expressed hope that the relationship would recover. In an exclusive interview after the incident, Strahan reflected on how he had been caught off guard by the intensity of Horan's reaction. He acknowledged that sometimes, even in the best intentions, questions could inadvertently touch on sensitive subjects that are difficult for a guest to discuss. He promised to approach future interviews with more sensitivity, recognizing that a guest's boundaries should always be respected. For Horan, the walk-off became more than just a controversial moment, it became a defining moment in his solo career. He had already made it clear that he wasn't interested in being forever associated with One Direction, but his outburst on live TV signaled that he was fully prepared to separate himself from the band's legacy on his own terms. The incident solidified his persona as an artist willing to stand up for his creative freedom and emotional well-being. As the weeks turned into months, both Horan and Strahan continued their respective careers. Horan's album sales remained strong, and his touring schedule saw sold-out performances across multiple continents. His loyal fans continued to support him, rallying around the singer's message of authenticity. The controversy, which could have potentially damaged his career, instead became part of his mythos, a reflection of his integrity and commitment to controlling his own narrative. Strahan, meanwhile, continued to anchor Good Morning America, but the interview remained a defining moment in his career as well. His approach to celebrity interviews had been called into question, and many people in the industry noted that his handling of the situation would likely change future interactions with guests. He seemed determined to learn from the experience, promising to bring a more thoughtful approach to interviews moving forward. In the aftermath of the walk-off, both celebrities became the subject of analysis in media studies classrooms, with professors using the incident as an example of how the boundaries between celebrity and media can become blurred. The class raised critical questions about the pressures of fame and how much control public figures really have over their personal narratives when they enter the media spotlight. For many students and analysts, the event was a living example of the complex relationships between media, celebrities, and their audiences. Horan's decision to walk off was widely seen as a demonstration of self-respect. By choosing to leave when the interview took a turn for the worse, he set a precedent for future celebrity interactions. Instead of submitting to uncomfortable questioning, Horan showed that it was possible to refuse to participate in a conversation that didn't align with his values. The incident encouraged other celebrities to think critically about how they were being treated during interviews and gave them a blueprint for standing up for themselves in similar situations. In an unexpected twist, the incident also led to an increase in media outlets discussing the ethics of celebrity journalism. Some publications ran think pieces exploring the responsibilities of interviewers, while others focused on the psychological toll that intense media scrutiny can take on stars. There were calls for a more empathetic approach to celebrity interviews, one that respects boundaries and recognizes the humanity behind the public personas. Some of Horan's fellow musicians also weighed in, with several praising him for his decision to walk off. Many artists have long struggled with the way they're treated in interviews, often feeling that their personal lives are exploited for the sake of a headline. Horan's actions served as a reminder that artists are people too, and they deserve respect, not just for their talent, but for their emotional and mental well-being. The incident also had a profound effect on the media's approach to celebrity culture. While sensationalism still drives much of the industry, there was a noticeable shift in tone in the wake of Horan's walk-off. Media outlets began to reconsider how they portray celebrities and started asking themselves whether the relentless pursuit of shocking moments was really in the best interest of either the artist or the audience. As the months went by, Niall Horan's career continued to thrive, and his public image shifted. No longer just a former boy band member, Horan was seen as an artist who had taken control of his narrative and carved out his own path. His honesty about his struggles and boundaries only endeared him further to his fans, who continued to champion his music and his journey. Strahan, for his part, appeared to learn from the encounter. His interviews after the incident became more balanced, with a new emphasis on respect for the emotional well-being of his guests. The experience also led to greater media scrutiny of celebrity interviews in general, with some critics calling for a deeper level of empathy and understanding from journalists who engage with high-profile personalities. In the long run, the Niall Horan-Michael Strahan clash became a symbol of the shifting dynamics between celebrities and the media. It was a reminder that, even in a world of constant entertainment and sensational headlines, the real stories often lie beneath the surface, and sometimes, it's the most genuine, emotional moments that leave the biggest impact. For Horan, the interview was a pivotal moment in his career, marking his transition from a former member of One Direction to a fully independent artist. It solidified his reputation not only as a musician but as someone unafraid to stand up for what he believes in. His ability to set boundaries in a world that often demands transparency showed his growth as a person and as an artist. The incident also had lasting effects on the broader media landscape. It prompted a re-evaluation of how interviews are conducted, and whether media outlets and hosts should exercise more caution when probing personal subjects. It became clear that celebrity culture is evolving, and with it, the expectations of both celebrities and audiences. Ultimately, the Niall Horan and Michael Strahan clash remains a defining moment in the intersection of media and celebrity. It was an intense reminder of the power of authenticity, the importance of respect, and the need for a deeper understanding of the personal toll that fame can take. The aftermath will continue to shape celebrity interviews for years to come, as both artists and journalists navigate the fine line between public and private life. In the months following the incident, Niall Horan's reputation as a musician was solidified. The drama surrounding his walk-off interview, rather than derailing his career, seemed to add another layer of depth to his public image. Fans and critics alike praised him for his authenticity and his ability to maintain composure in the face of invasive questioning. It became evident that Horan's appeal wasn't just his musical talent but also his genuine nature, which stood in stark contrast to the often manufactured personas of some celebrities. His stance on protecting his personal space resonated with fans who saw him as someone they could relate to, someone who wasn't afraid to speak his truth. For Michael Strahan, the interview became a humbling learning experience. In interviews that followed, Strahan addressed the situation with more care, demonstrating that he had reflected on the incident. In an appearance on a podcast, Strahan acknowledged that as a journalist, his goal was always to create meaningful, respectful conversations with guests. "I've always prided myself on making my guests feel comfortable," he explained. "But that interview with Neil taught me the importance of reading the room and understanding when a question might be too much." Strahan's self-awareness showed a maturity that allowed him to grow from the uncomfortable situation. The incident also brought attention to the complex world of celebrity management and how publicists and agents navigate tricky interview situations. It became apparent that celebrity teams were now more cautious about what kinds of questions their clients were willing to answer, and a greater emphasis was placed on pre-interview negotiations. Celebrity managers became more involved in setting boundaries before their clients went on air, ensuring that no topic was off-limits unless clearly communicated beforehand. This shift in approach aimed to prevent the kinds of confrontations seen between Horan and Strahan from happening again. The aftermath of the interview sparked a cultural shift in the way fans and media viewed the personal lives of celebrities. It became clear that the public was more willing to support stars who stood up for their privacy and boundaries. Niall Horan's decision to walk off the set wasn't just seen as a defense of his personal life, but as an act of empowerment. It sent a clear message to fans and fellow celebrities that it was okay to refuse to be drawn into conversations that made them uncomfortable, especially when they didn't owe anyone an explanation. Celebrity interviews, once largely focused on promoting projects, started to shift in tone after the Horan-Strahan incident. Media outlets and TV programs began adopting a more sensitive approach to personal questioning, understanding that press tours could no longer be a free-for-all when it came to digging into an artist's private life. In the wake of the clash, there was a rise in the number of interviews that focused on an artist's work, rather than prying into their past or personal struggles. It was an encouraging sign that the industry was learning from its mistakes. While Niall Horan's walk-off remained a headline-grabbing moment, it was not his only note for the achievement during this period. His album, which had been released shortly before the interview, continued to receive critical acclaim. The album's introspective lyrics and mature sound demonstrated Horan's growth as an artist, far beyond the confines of his boy band origins. Fans appreciated his transparency in his music, and the raw emotion that came through in his songwriting. The album performed well commercially, and his concert tour was met with sold-out crowds, further cementing Horan's position as a solo artist. The media's reaction to the walk-off interview also highlighted a growing divide in how celebrity culture is approached. While some outlets stuck to their sensationalist roots, others embraced the changing tide by fostering more intimate and thoughtful conversations with stars. Many entertainment news programs began inviting psychologists and media experts to discuss the emotional and psychological toll of fame, and how it impacted the way celebrities engaged with the media. This growing awareness pointed to a potential shift in how the industry at large might approach its relationship with stars moving forward. In the wake of the Horan-Strahan incident, there was a noticeable uptick in interviews where celebrities spoke openly about their mental health, the pressures of fame, and the need for boundaries. Horan, for instance, became more vocal about the importance of self-care in interviews after the incident. He shared how difficult it had been to adjust to the public's expectations after leaving One Direction, acknowledging that the constant scrutiny had a lasting impact on his mental health. His openness about mental health challenges was a message that resonated deeply with his fanbase, particularly in a time when many people were starting to prioritize their emotional well-being. The fallout from the interview also led to some celebrities becoming more vocal about their own boundaries with the media. Pop stars, actors, and athletes began taking more control of their public appearances, setting clear limits on what they were willing to discuss. It became clear that the era of celebrities being constantly available for probing, invasive interviews was coming to an end. Just as Horan had walked off during the interview with Strahan, other stars began to set their own terms for how they would engage with journalists, leading to a new era of celebrity-media relations. Social media, too, played a pivotal role in the aftermath of the interview. Fans rallied around Horan, flooding social media with messages of support. The hashtag #NeilWalksOff trended worldwide, with thousands of posts defending Horan's right to protect his privacy. Celebrities, many of whom had been in similar situations, also took to Twitter and Instagram to express their support. The incident sparked a broader conversation on the platform about the ethics of celebrity interviews, with fans and critics alike debating whether Strahan's questions had crossed the line.